Greetings, everybody. I'm Steve Mesple from Wildwood Guitars, and one of the very special things, one of the many special things we get to do here is hang out with some wonderful musicians who stop by. And today we're joined by Dave Hanson from one of my favorite bands, the Dunwells.
Hey,
Dave,
Steve.
big thanks to you
Good
for
to see
stopping
you.
by.
Thank
Love your
you.
playing, love the music. So, you're out on tour right now?
That's right, yeah.
All over the US?
Yeah, we've been on the road for 6 weeks now. We started the East Coast and we're just doing some dates in Colorado before we head home for a couple of weeks, and then we're back out again, California and Canada.
And where's home?
Leeds, England, where The Who recorded.
Yeah, I was just going to say, very famous musical
Leeds,
town.
Leeds University, yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me about the band. How have you been a member from the inception? I know
Yes. Yeah, it's a family band, so ultimately we have two brothers, the Dunwell brothers, who are the vocalists, and then there's Johnny, the drummer, and Rob, the bass player, cousins. So they've obviously known each other for a long time. And then Dave Dunwell and Rob went to school together, so they've known each other since high school. And I kind of came in the group when it sort of formed about 4 years ago. They said we need a guitarist, and we're all from the same small town just outside of Leeds.
Okay.
And I was quite well known on the scene. I'm a little bit older than them guys, but it's like.
So are you a family member also?
No, I'm not related.
Okay, so the only
I'm a brother
non-family
from another
member?
mother.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
We've been a band for about 4 years. We came over to Memphis in 2010 to do the Folk Alliance conference,
Right.
and we got noticed by a guy in Austin, Texas, who manages Los Lonely Boys, and he basically offered us a record deal and then shipped us over to Austin, Texas to do the record, and then we've been touring the States for about 18 months now. So.
Well, I got to hear you on The Tonight Show
Yes.
with Jay Leno.
Yeah, Jay Leno. That was last
Right.
year. That was pretty cool.
And the one album at this time?
Just one record at the moment.
That's The
yeah.
Blindsided Faith?
Blindsided Faith.
Great record. Really
Thank you.
incredibly inspired music, vocals, guitar playing,
Thank you.
tremendous production. The songs are amazing.
Thank
So
you.
do you contribute as a writer?
Yeah. We all contribute in different ways. I mean, when you listen to the record, there's a lot of sort of the hooks and the riffs will come from me. Things like "Blindsided Faith" is a song that Joe wrote himself, but like it's like a.
Yep.
That's
you?
riff. I think I've ripped it off you too, actually.
And is that your guitar hook on "Follow the Road"?
Well, you see, that actually came originally from a hook. The song that.
Right.
That was the basis of the song, and from that we kind of built the song up. And it was really in hindsight, that was the last song that we came to put on the record.
Right.
And it kind of came together around a swimming pool in Austin, Texas, whilst we were doing the record. One day I was like, "Hey, why don't we try this riff out, man?" And
Right.
he was going, "Yeah, that's cool." And Joe started singing "Follow the Road," and then we kind of went in the studio, and it's one of those songs that came together in the studio rather than came together that we've been playing live.
Right. Great song.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Fabulous.
it's really taken its own form since we started playing it live,
Right.
and then obviously we did it on the Leno show and stuff,
Yep.
and it's kind of like one of our encore songs now.
Really.
So.
One of my favorites, another of my is "I Could Be a King."
Yeah.
What's the genesis of that?
Well, actually, if you look on YouTube carefully, there's a version of me and Joe playing that acoustically.
I've seen that.
And
yeah.
it's in a 3/4 time, because Joe writes a lot of his songs in 3/4 because he's a finger picker, and that's his kind of natural way of falling.
Kind of got a waltz fetish of some sort.
Basically, yeah. And so that was his song, and he had the verse and he had the chorus, and then we got told we needed to come up with more songs that are like about 120 BPM, more 4 on the floor, stompy sort of thing. So we kind of changed it to that kind of groove, and Johnny came up with the sort of the drum beat, and there was a banjo someone had given us. It was just lying around in the studio. So Dave went, "Hey, I'll play a bit of banjo."
He played it beautifully. Yeah.
So that
sounds
happened,
awesome.
but we didn't have the end. But I had this riff that kind of went. And we said, well, we could put that in there, and then someone, why don't we start chanting over the top of it?
Yeah.
So that's where the bit came
Yeah.
from the guitar riff that I
Right.
kind of came up with. So
Yeah, really great songs.
Thank you.
Really,
It's doing quite
really
well already
inspired
at the
stuff.
moment. We're just creeping into the Billboard Hot
Right.
Adult Top 40. So.
Yeah. And you play a lot in the UK? Is the
yes.
band known there, or are you more
We
well
are,
known
yeah.
over
I mean,
here?
we can do 500 people in Leeds and stuff like that, and we play quite a bit in London. But the record's not in the UK yet. It's going to come out probably in about 2 months, and it's going to be a different record. It's kind of like a throwback to the 60s, where the Beatles and the Stones would do different records in the US and the UK. And the UK is very acoustic based, so we're doing a lot more acoustic shows. I'm playing a Taylor T5, and it's going direct through the PA and stuff, and it's got a more of a laid back vibe. It's more vocal heavy, the harmonies really shine through. And the record in the UK is going to be a combination of some of the tracks from the American album, but some acoustic versions of it. So like Oh Lord, which is it's kind of like our Stairway to Heaven, if I like to put it, or whatever, when we play it live, because it kind of builds to this big kind of crescendo with the Dave Gilmour style guitar solo in it and stuff. But in the UK, we've really stripped it down to more of a vocal-based sort of thing. So but it's going well.
That sounds great. So we've talked about the band. Tell us about you and the guitar. How you got started. Maybe what some of your favorite guitars are that you use. Who some of your inspirations were.
Well, it's odd because I suppose what you would regard as a preschool teacher, my nursery teacher, was married to a guitarist. And so when I was about 3 or 4 years old, my first memory is her, she was friends with my parents, and she had to look after me one day, taking me back to her house whilst my parents finished work. And she's going, "Oh, have you ever seen a guitar before?" And I'm like, "No." And I've got vivid memory. She's opening this case up, and they've seen this guitar, and it being a rainbow colour. Yeah. And later years I realised it was actually a Les Paul Sunburst that he had there. I don't know if it was an original or issue and stuff, but that kind of got ingrained in my mind. And so I just decided I wanted to play guitar. And when I was about 8, my parents were moving house, and they were selling some stuff off. And they said, "If you sell all these toys that you've got, you can buy this acoustic guitar that was on this market stall." And I was like, "Okay, that's great." So I sold all my toys, and I got this acoustic. And I just started learning to play chords. And my dad had a collection of records, things like Buddy Holly, Chuck Berry, some ABBA stuff, And so I learned all my Ds and my As and my Gs and my A7s and things. And I just used to sit and play chords to all these songs and stuff. And that's pretty much as far as I took it. And I found there's a brick wall as far as guitar playing was concerned. And then when I was about 14, I persuaded my parents to buy me an electric guitar. And they got me it was a PV Predator, I think it was a Strat copy. I got some lessons from a guy that was teaching at school. He just taught me pentatonics and that kind of thing. And it was just like this door opened, and I was like, wow, I've got to get into this more. And this was early 90s, so the big bands, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and I was like 14 years old, and I started listening to all them, and Slash was one of my early heroes. And then my uncle gave me he said, "Yeah, you like guitar music. Have you ever heard Eric Clapton?" I'm like, no, I've never heard Eric Clapton before. So he gave me a cassette, Best of Eric Clapton, and I heard Cream, and I was just like, man, what a sound, the tone, that kind of the
woman tone.
That woman tone, that kind of, which I actually stole. There's a song called Perfect Timing on the album, and it's got a, which is kind of my homage to Clapton and Gary Moore. I got into Gary Moore from that Parisian Walkways. I learned how to play that, and and then from that I got a Best of Jimi Hendrix CD, the first CD I ever bought, like 95 or something like that, and I started listening to all this Hendrix stuff. And then I was at a party one day, and someone said, "Hey, you ever heard Led Zeppelin before?" I was like, "No, I've never heard Led Zeppelin." They put Led Zeppelin 2 on, and I heard Whole Lot of Love, and I was just like, wow, that is just the best sound I've ever heard. So I started getting really into Jimmy Page, Gary Moore. I was lucky enough to see Gary Moore play live quite a few times in the UK. Saw Clapton a few times in the 90s on the From the Cradle tour. And I saw Clapton in Sheffield for the first time at Sheffield Arena, and it was billed as Eric Clapton and Friends. And I was like 16, and Clapton came on and he played with his band, and he was like, "Okay, I'd like to introduce some friends up. This is a local boy, he's going to come and sing a few songs." And he brought Joe Cocker on stage with him, so I was like that. And then he said, "And there's some other friends of mine from Texas," and he got ZZ Top 10 up on stage as well. So that was a pretty
those are good friends to have.
Influential moment in life. So I was really into all those guys, and Paul Kossoff from Free was also one of my sort of.
What's great,
heroes.
your heroes many of them were my heroes as a
Okay.
young man. Slightly different generations. I actually, 5 or 6 years ago, I went on a musical pilgrimage to go see Clapton and Cream play at
Yeah, you
Royal
mentioned
Albert
earlier. I
Hall.
thought that was awesome.
And Eric, in his younger days, the early Cream stuff changed my life. I had the Wheels of Fire record, which was this monumental recording, and one of the two albums, it was a double album set. One was a live recording, and one side had Crossroads and then Spoonful. And I played Crossroads so many times that the black vinyl turned white.
Wow.
I didn't know it was possible, but I think that's an amazing song and great heroes. So how have all these incredible musicians come out of England? What's your theory on it? I mean, it's having been there a few times, it's a relatively small country without a massive population, but why does all the great music, you guys,
know.
I mean...
It comes in waves, doesn't it? Because like for us, all we seem to get is American music coming over. You know, in the charts dominated by American bands and American pop artists, and they have been for a while now. But there seems to be more of a British invasion again happening in America. But maybe every 10, 15 years that happens.
Right.
But I don't know. I think one of the reasons is partly because of the radio and the actual accessibility. I mean, it's changed a little bit recently because of the whole internet. But you know, especially when I was growing up, you really only had you've got the BBC, and that is the only mainstream radio that you can listen to. And if you want to listen to cutting edge or pop or new music, you listen to Radio 1. If you want to listen to sort of more classic stuff, you listen to Radio 2. And I grew up with a combination of both. I'd be into Nirvana and Guns N' Roses. There was Radio 1, but then I'd turn Radio 2 on. My mum would be doing the vacuuming and she'd have Sweet Home Alabama playing in the background or something like that. So I think you kind of almost force-fed music in that sort of sense. I don't know. We've got some great British amplifier companies and things. You know,
Very
Marshall
well
are
known.
obviously a very well-known one, and I've always used Marshall amplifiers. I am a big fan of Marshall sound. You know, primarily because all the guys I've just spoken about.
That's right. All your heroes. Yeah.
Like Jeff Beck and stuff like that.
How about guitars? Favorite guitars you have out on the road?
Gibson. I'm kind of a Gibson slut, really. But I'm very particular about Les Pauls. I think I'm quite keen on this one, actually. It's got a nice tone to it. But it's, like I say, the first guitar I ever saw was a Les Paul Sunburst. And then later on, the same guy was a Paul Kossoff nut. And he played in a free tribute band. And one of the first times I ever saw Les Paul played live was maybe 15, 16 years old in a pub in Pudsey where I grew up. And it was his free tribute band, and both him and the bass player were playing through orange amplifier stacks. And I mean, the room was like half the size of this room. It was tiny. And I went with my mum, and we sat right in front of the stage. And it had this gold guitar, Les Paul guitar, hung up on the stack. And because we knew him, he said, "Oh, come and have a look." And he showed me. And he also had a '68 custom, a Les Paul custom, and he didn't like it. That was his backup guitar. This gold one was his baby. And then a couple of years later, he let my band support his band, and he still had this '68, and he let me play the guitar. And he sold it. I think he sold it for about £2,000 or something like that. And I mean, I don't know how much a '68 custom would be worth now, but
Quite a bit more.
Quite a little bit more. He also had a '52 gold top, which I think he sold for about £3,000 as well. So, you know, but that's in hindsight the what used to happen. But yes, I was kind of inspired by seeing him play that kind of that tone through the orange stack, and then he went on to using it. He had an orange Marshall as well at some point. I don't know if he ever made those, but
Actually, Marshall had some old amps that they made in custom colors.
Okay.
So I've seen purples and yellows and orange and all that, red.
It was pretty cool.
Wow.
But I mean, he owned a guitar store in Leeds, and it was in the days before the internet. So guitar stores, I don't know what it's like in America, but in England now, have become very boring because all you tend to get is your brand new Fenders, your brand new Gibson USA stuff, unless you go to a really specialist store that's got some nice custom shop stuff. And in those days, you used to go in and you used to find a lot of second-hand stuff, and so, you know, and used stuff. It's now vintage, I suppose, but you know, in them days it was used, and you'd find it was like going to a treasure trove. You'd be like, "What have you got in here?" "I've got this old '73 custom, and you know, it's 500 quid," and you're like, "Oh, I'll have that, thank you very much." So, I mean, I bought my first Les Paul when I was 19 with my first university grant. And you know,
And how did schooling go?
well, you know, I didn't go that much.
With
to be
that
honest
kind of
with you.
dedication and devotion.
In fact, I bought two things. I bought a 73 Deluxe, which I've still got. It's the guitar I used on the Jay Leno show. I've put a Bixby on it now, and it was all beat up. I got that for £500. And I went to another store, and this was 97, and Marshall had just done a limited edition 30 or 35th anniversary stack in white.
Yep.
And it had been in the store for months. And I went in one day, I said, how much is that? They went, oh, nobody wants to buy this amp. Nobody wants a white Marshall. I went, well, how much do you want for it? He went like £450 or something like that. I said, oh, I think I've got about that left. I think I got £1,000 grant. I said, I'll buy it. So I had a white Marshall stack, and it became a bit of an in joke, you know, like Dave Hanson with the white Marshall stack.
Well, now I can see how all this great music came out of England. Apparently, all the musicians are using these university grants to buy musical equipment.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit now. You can't get grants anymore. But
so, what's next for the Dunwells? You have a new recording in the works, or
well,
new
we're just
songs,
touring this
more
record.
touring?
I mean, we put the record out last year on our own label, and it got picked up by Concord Records, which is a major based in Los Angeles, in August. So they re-released the record. So there's still a little bit of mileage. We're still pushing the first single to radio, and I think there's another 2 or 3 songs. And Follow the Road is now being pushed out to the AAA format. But I Could Be a King is still doing pop radio, and it's still doing that kind of thing. So as far as new recordings are concerned, I wouldn't expect to see another Dunwells album probably at least until early next year. I know we're going in the studio end of April to demo some new songs, because we are playing a lot of new material, and I've been writing, and Joe and Dave have been writing, and Johnny's been writing, so there's a lot of stuff being bandied around.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to see any light of day for the next year, probably.
Will you record this upcoming record here in the States, you think?
I hope so.
Not sure?
I'm a big fan of recording away from your life. So like a lot of us have families and stuff in England, and I think sometimes if you're kind of recording close to home, your family life kind of takes priority and you don't concentrate too much. And whereas if you go somewhere where you basically there's nothing to do except record music, you get a lot more kind of concentrated
Everybody's
effort.
focused on it. Yeah.
But we found a really nice studio in Texas. I mean, we did the record in Texas at Willie Nelson's studio, but unfortunately that studio is now shut down. But we went to another place called Blue Rock or somewhere like that in Wimberley. Beautiful, out in the countryside. The swimming pool. It's like this beautiful Rupert Neve desk they've just installed, because apparently Rupert lives just down the road from them, so they put a new desk in, and it's all this beautiful hall and stuff. So we're hoping that we might be able to record there.
Well, I want to wish you the best.
Thank you, man.
I really want to thank you for taking time to stop by.
It's a pleasure.
Stick around as long as you want.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear you play some more music.
Yeah, you might see me running out the door with this.
See you later. Thanks.
Thank you.
So do you always play with your fingers?
No, I've got to pick that up.
Okay.
But I like to play with my fingers a lot.
The vibrato sounds Paul Kossoff-ish,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, when are we doing like that?
Yeah.
On No Lord and stuff like that. But we did a song called Borrow Me that's on the record, and I played that on a Telecaster. It was a rosewood necked custom thing. John Porter's guitars were what I used to do the record, because we didn't fly any in. But it was a Mexican body, but it had Texas Special humbuck pickups on it, and it had a completely solid rosewood one-piece neck that he had made by Roger Giffin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Roger's actually been out to the store. Great builder.
Okay. Yeah. And that was awesome, and it just had such a. In fact, I used that on I Could Be a King, Borrow Me. You know, I didn't use the Les Paul as much as I thought I would have done. I'd used it on Oh Lord, and I played like Perfect Timing and all that kind of thing using the Les Paul. But you know, it's hit and miss. You know,
Sounds
the good
great.
thing about the studio is that you can kind of make things sound like they shouldn't sound. You know what I mean? Just boost the mids and make this Telecaster sound like a Gibson. But,
Yeah.
And I used the treble boost. I mean, at one point I had the Jimmy Page setup where I had Telecaster, Super Amp, and the treble boost, and it was like Led Zeppelin 1. I was just like, I was in heaven, you know. Echoplex, and off we go. But yeah.
We play. Sounds great.
Thank you, man.
Really
Thank you.
awesome.